Good evening, beautiful woman. Welcome to Isaya's Inspiring Evenings, a podcast full of goddess series, witches' secrets, colors of women and fairy seasons to integrate serenity, abundance, joy, and magic into your life. I am Isaya Bell, creatrix, magical pragmatic inspiration mentor, tech goddess teacher, and traveling priestess. And this podcast aims to accompany you for peaceful and inspiring evenings. Isaya's Inspiring Evenings has had various iterations and styles and is published irregularly. Subscribe to the podcast on the platform of your choice to be informed of the publication of each new episode. If you like this podcast, please support it by leaving stars, blue thumbs, and reviews on whatever platform you listen to me. In 2024, there are going to be 5 series in it. For now, all different, all aiming to inspire the audience, all telling stories, each complementing each other. One series titled Women Lighting the Way is about women's stories, centering around the past or future speakers from the various Women Lighting the Way summits, adding to the virtual library of women's stories and providing a much-needed counterpoint to the many men's stories going around in our world of patriarchy. This is one of those episodes, and I am happy to invite you to listen to the story of Ruby Coupe, recorded in 2021, entitled Council Estate, Teen Mom to Full-Time Artist. Enjoy!
Hello, I am Ruby from dottydelightful.com. I am an artist and zine maker and community gatherer, and I love to empower people to just see the little things that we often miss and appreciate them, and just be so grateful for every little simple thing, whether it's a tiny little ant to a huge thing. And that's what I love to do. I've not always been this happy and this positive and this joyous, and I'll tell you a little bit about my story and how I got to do what I do now, which is be a full-time artist, scene maker and designer, which is amazing. It's just totally amazing. So I had this plan that I was going to be a fashion designer, and I was going to go to art college when I was 16 at a local one, and then I was going to get my qualification and move to London and do a degree in London in fashion and become this amazing fashion designer. However, I did go to art college when I was 16, but I met a boy with a leather jacket and long hair. So the warning signs should have already been there. Anyway, I ended up pregnant and it was so poorly that I had to drop out of college, which was terrible. It was a shame. And I actually thought that all my chances were over in that time. So I was in that relationship for 8 years and we had 3 children, and it was a very abusive, a very mentally abusive and sometimes physically abusive relationship. And he then turned his attention onto the children, which something in me there was like a light bulb, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? So I got the police to take him away. And then I became a single mum, and I was a single mum for another 8 years, and I had 3 under 5s on my own. And I'll be honest with you, it was hard. It was really hard. Most of the time in the first couple of years, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I didn't know how to, I knew practically how to do things, but emotionally and mentally, I didn't know how to cope. And my oldest son is autistic. He's vaccine damaged and he's autistic. So that was another added thing on top to contribute to everything. So it was really hard, and I drank a lot and I took drugs. And I had this group of friends who at the time I thought was brilliant. But really they just wanted to come to my house because I was the only one that had a house that didn't live with parents. And I think I drank and I took drugs to escape the reality that I was actually living, that I had come from a single parent family. And the last thing on earth I wanted for my children was to be in a single parent family. And it was hard. It was financially hard. I didn't have very much money at all. I used to burn furniture to keep the house warm. I'd feed the kids and I wouldn't eat. So yeah, it was a very hard time, but such a good lesson. And one day, my house got raided by the police, and it frightened me. It really did frighten me. And one of my friends, we'll call him, turned out that he was a drug dealer. And I should have known this. With hindsight, I should have known this because he was the one that always had the drugs. But I didn't. I honestly didn't because I was really naive and probably a bit stupid. So, yeah, my house got raided. And at the time, I had a big block of weed. It was like a big bar, and it had dropped into the toaster, so they didn't find it. And this police lady said to me, if we come back to your house, we'll bring in social services and you'll have your children taken off you. Something, again, in my head, it was just like, oh my God, what am I doing? It was like a wake up, like a proper wake up call. So I got rid of all those friends. I got rid of the lot of them, and I went back to college and I did criminology and psychology for a year or two, and I really, really loved it. So I knew that I needed to do something. I needed to do something to earn a living and to make our lives better. And I decided to open a shop, which was a crazy, crazy thing. But I saw one for rent and I was like, yeah, I'm going to open a shop. So at the time, I missed a bit there. At the time, I'd gone back to college and I was doing fashion and textile design. Anyway, so this particular day, I'd seen this shop and it was an old 70s TV shop. And my house was full of things I'd collected from junk shops and charity shops and stuff over the years. One, because that's all I could afford, but two, because I kind of liked that style. So I saw this shop and I was like, I'm going to open this shop. I didn't have a clue, never done anything like that in my life before. But my motto is, what is the worst that can happen? So what I did was I got rented the shop. I got all the stuff out of my house that I didn't really need or want anymore and put it in the shop. And I made loads of handmade clothes and I put them in the shop as well. And I had this shop for about a year. And it was brilliant. It was really good. It didn't make much money at all, but it felt like I had a purpose. It felt like I had a reason for doing something, and it expanded my skills. And I met loads of great people as well that had come in, and you know, it was a really good shop. And then I went to this meeting. It was like a meeting for creative people that wanted to do more with their lives, basically. And I went to this meeting and I was in the session and we was going around saying all the different stuff, and I was petrified of talking. Like at this point, there was no way that I'd say things I was thinking. But the lady that was running it was brilliant, and she really teased things out of you. And she said, what would you do if you could do anything? So at the time, I'd been hand sewing toys for the kids because I couldn't afford to buy them. And friends saw them and they'd bought some off me. And I'd done a few fairs, so the craft fairs. And what I've realised was that every craft fair that I went to, there was something that was not quite right. So either it didn't have any atmosphere, or the footfall was low, or the signage was rubbish, or it had not been advertised. There was always something, and I'd sit there at these craft fairs for the full day thinking, what a waste of a day. Like, I've probably made 20 quid or something, you know, like what a waste of a day. So in this meeting, this lady was talking, and I must have been inspired in the moment by everybody's stories. And she said, what would you do if you could do anything? And I said, I'd run my own craft fairs. That's what I'd do. And she said, and why are you not doing it? And I thought, yeah, why am I not doing it? Like, what's stopping me from doing that? And again, it's that thing of you don't know what's going to happen. So it's like you could try and run a craft fair. It could be shocking. You've done it. If you don't ever do it, you'll never know. So I hired a church hall. It was this little community church hall, and it was £40 for the whole day, but we could go and set up early. And there was 12 stalls. I had 12 stalls, and I was very strict that it was only handmade and vintage. There was no mass marketed stuff or anything like that. And it had to be a really nice quality of stall as well. And there was a vintage tea room. So over the years, I'd collected loads of vintage pottery. So I used all that in the tea room, and me and my partner then, because I had a partner by this point, we baked all night for this tea room, and it was brilliant. It was a brilliant success. Basically, we drew posters for it and leaflets, and went to the library and got them all printed at the library on the photocopier, and then posted them in the area through all the doors and everything. And it was brilliant. It was a really good success. So I did that. Quite often. I think I did maybe 3 of those. And what I found was the reputation of it was growing. So more people was coming and saying, can I have a stall? And there just physically wasn't any room. So on the third one of my lovely stall holders said, what are you going to do? Because I know loads of people that want to come and have a stall. What are you going to do? So in a moment of madness or genius or whatever you want to call it, I said, I am going to hire the Winter Gardens. Now, if you don't know what the Winter Gardens is, it's in Blackpool. You can look it up online. It is this huge building right in the middle of town, and it has theatres in it, and, you know, some amazing people have played there, musicians and bands and stuff like that. It's huge. It's like a big, iconic building. And we just all started laughing that I was going to hire the Winter Gardens. But then when we was packing up and I went home, I thought about it, and I thought, well, what harm could it do to just go and inquire? So I had a meeting with the manager, and he showed me around, and in the building there's all different areas and rooms that you can hire. And when I say rooms, they're huge, you know. And he showed me around a few, and I wasn't feeling the vibe. And then he opened these big doors, and it's a shape like a horseshoe, and right in the middle is a stage. So all the doors inside open up. So it's this huge horseshoe. It's called the Pavilion Horseshoe, if you want to look it up, and you'll see. So he showed me this, and I was just like, oh, this is the space. This is amazing. I knew where I could have my tea room. I thought I can have entertainment on the stage and stuff. Oh, it's fantastic. So we did the tour, and then I said, how much would it be? Now, the reason I told you that the church hall was £40 was because you'll understand now. So he said, it's 3,600 for the weekend, plus on top you've got table hire. And inside, a little bit of me died. A little bit kind of went, oh my God. But my outside face went, oh, that's really reasonable. And he said, but I'll give it you for free if you give me 70% of your take-ins. Now, at this point, this was years ago, at this point, I was not a good business person. My maths is rubbish. Like, I have to use a calculator for everything. But I thought, if this manager guy of this whole building thinks that there's a potential there to offer me this for free, this is going to work. So I said, no, it's perfectly fine. It'll be fine. I'm not doing that deal. I'll pay for it. So the thing about me is I'm really meticulous, and I can be really organised if I'm doing something. and I learn from what's happened. So if there's a challenge or a mistake or something happens, I'll learn from it and then I evolve and move on. So because I'd done the other little fairs, I'd picked up on a few things that needed rectifying. Because I'd been a stall holder at the fairs, I knew what was wrong from that side as well, which I think is a really brilliant way to come at it, because a lot of people come at it from, oh, I'm just in this to make money, and it's not that. It's about building the community. The money's obviously the bonus. So in the end, I had 120 stalls, full live entertainment all weekend. So it was a 2-day event, a tea room, and I hired friends that I knew that needed some extra money as staff, and me and my partner Tom and a couple of stall holders, used to go on the Friday, set up all the tables, all the 120 tables and chairs, get everything ready, and then the doors would open at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. And that first day that they opened, I felt sick. I needed to go to the loo. I thought, what have I done? I can't cope. I didn't know who was where or what. I had all these lists printed out of like table numbers and people, but there was 120 of them. And people was going, I can't find myself and stuff like that. Oh, it was awful. I really thought I'm going to go and hide in the toilet and not come out. Like I felt that scared and panicky. And I just had to get hold of myself. Like I really just had to get hold of myself and get on with it and get through it. And that was a massive lesson. So it evolved, and I would email everybody exactly where the stall was, directions, everything, as it went on. And I got really good at doing it. So I used to do them 4 times a year. For 4 years I did it, but it made me quite poorly. It made me really poorly, because we'd start on the Friday and we wouldn't finish till the Monday. And by the Monday, I was like, I couldn't even speak. I was that exhausted. I just couldn't speak. So it wasn't good for me. So I made the decision that I'd sell it on to somebody else so it could keep going. And unfortunately, that didn't work out because the person didn't keep it going, which is sad. But it taught me so much, and it also built up my network as well of getting to know other people and things like that, which was really, really brilliant. So then after that, I opened an Etsy shop. Etsy is an online platform where you can sell handmade and vintage items or craft supplies. I opened an Etsy shop. It didn't really do very much for a long time, I have to be honest. And then I started working, doing things freelance. So I would go to the hospital and teach a workshop, or I would, go to a college and put an event on and things like that. So I started doing that, which was really good. Now, this is going on for the years. So at the same time as all this was happening, obviously the kids are getting older. My eldest that's autistic wasn't getting any help at all, and it was really hard at home. So I begged and pleaded with services, to help, and they didn't. So it got to the point where we finally got him to be seen by someone, and this doctor lady wanted to put him on Ritalin. And now I'd heard about Ritalin, but I wasn't quite sure about it. So I said to her, please, can you wait, and I will go and do a little bit of research, and then we'll come back. And she said, yeah, that's fine. So I went away and did some research, and I realised that Ritalin's actually killed loads of children. The hearts explode. So I thought, there's no way he's going on that. So I printed out, me thinking it was a good idea, printed out all this stuff for the doctor, and I took it with me to the next appointment. And I said, look, you can't go on this stuff. I've printed out all this stuff. I didn't know if you knew, but it's really dangerous to prescribe to children and stuff. And she got the papers that I'd printed out and just dropped them in the bin. And she went, sign this form to say that you're refusing medication. And I was like, what? So I had to sign this form, and that because I signed that form, he wasn't able to get speech therapy. He wasn't able to get help with his mobility because he had dyspraxia as well. He wasn't able to get anything. And I went home and I cried my eyes out because I was at the end of my tether and I didn't know what we was going to do. It was really, really hard. So I started researching, and because I was researching, I found out about all the different toxins in food, in your environment, in the stuff you put in your body, all that kind of stuff. So we started to change our lives completely. It was like, because of this one incident again, our lives started changing massively. So I found out about home education. So I took the kids out of school, the two younger ones, and we home educated them. And the idea was that they'd be home educated when they were young. When they got to be high school age, they'd go to high school. But what happened was they loved it that much that they decided they didn't want to go to high school. So we just carried on. We changed our lives totally. So we've gone from smoking, drinking alcohol, eating meat, having dairy, using all the products and everything, to now we are vegan. We don't use any kind of chemical cleaners or anything on our bodies that's not natural. We eat really well. We don't eat anything that could harm us and stuff. And because of that, my asthma that I've had since I was a child disappeared. My kids' eczema disappeared. My partner had a thyroid problem, which they said that he'd be on pills for all his life. That's gone. That's disappeared. Loads of stuff. But the main point of it was the food that we changed to really helped my son. So it really calmed him down, which was a miracle. Like, it was brilliant. And at the same time of doing all that, we don't know how, we can't remember how we came across this documentary called The Secret. It's available on YouTube, the full thing. And we watched this documentary called The Secret, and it's all about the law of attraction and manifesting your dream life, basically. And it's not about sitting here and going, oh, I want a massive swimming pool, bring it to me. And then you just sit here and do nothing. It's not about that. It's about putting out there what you wish into the world, whether that's mentally or you verbally speak it. I really like the saying that words are like spells, and that's why it's called spelling. So you put it out into the world and then it comes back to you in some way, but you still have to do work. You still have to make the effort to do something, whether that be talking to other people, whether that be something physical or actually doing the work where you're working on yourself, journaling, meditating, all that kind of thing. So at the same time, we watched The Secret, and again, light bulb moments went off, and we could see a pattern through our lives, parallel and individually, where The Secret has come into play. And it was just eye-opening and life-changing, really was life-changing. So we started reading self-help books, we started watching videos on people that was already living this kind of life. And it's been a whole change. So a change physically by what we put inside us and what we put on us, a change mentally by doing the work, journaling, gratitude, affirmations, meditations, everything. And also emotionally, being able to emotionally express how you're feeling without blaming somebody else, and checking in with your cycles. As a woman, it is so important, I feel, that we embrace our cycles and we can journal on them, we can chart them. Even if you don't bleed anymore, even if you've had an hysterectomy, you still have a cycle. And I tell you, if I knew about charting my cycles in my 20s and my 30s, life would have been so much different, because I really thought that there was something wrong with me and that I was crazy, because I used to think I cried for no reason. But what I've realised now is, on a certain day of the month, I will cry because it's where I am in my chart, in my cycle. So there's been a grand, huge change in all of that. And at the same time, I've been working on doing things, doing workshops, teaching things, teaching art classes, teaching holistic classes, teaching foraging, all that kind of stuff. And it got to the point where I turned 40 and I was working in a crap hotel to kind of boost our money up a little bit because my Etsy was really slow. And I realised that I do not want to work in this crappy hotel. It was I'm not even going to go into it, but it was awful. Pardon me. So when I turned 40, I was like, do you know what? I'm always telling everybody else, do what you want, do what you love. What do you love to do? Do that. That's what you need to do. And I hadn't been listening to my own advice. So I decided that I was going to pursue art. This is what I want to do. When I paint, it's like I lose everything around me. I'm just in that moment and it is the most beautiful thing. So I decided that I'm gonna be an artist. That's what I'm gonna do. So I quit the job at the hotel. And that's what I did. I just became an artist. So it didn't go quite to plan. And after a while, after a few months of thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do, I don't know how I'm going to pay for things, I ended up getting a job at the council. So I got a job, it's called a resort ambassador, because Blackpool's a seaside town in the northwest and it has all sorts of attractions like the tower and piers and a beach, a beautiful beach and stuff like that. So there was these jobs called resort ambassadors, and basically you had to wear this ugly uniform and go around the streets helping people if they needed directions or if there was a show to promote and things like that. Which all sounded fabulous. I love talking to people, I love being out and doing things. It sounded wonderful. But what I realised was the bureaucracy of the council is just ridiculous. They give us these forms to fill in, and if you saw a homeless person begging for money, you had to go and fine them £50. So I refused. I said, I'm not doing it. That is inhumane. I am not doing it. That's disgusting. So every day I'd be going to work thinking, oh my God, what is going to come out today? Like, what stupidity will come out today? So on my way to work one day, I said, universe, please give me a sign. What should I do? Should I quit this job? It was the most money I'd ever been paid in my life. It was really good where you could just know that you could just pay for everything. So I was in a quandary because it didn't sit right morally with me, but it was really good money and I've never had that before. Universe, give me a sign. What should I do? What should I do? So I went into work in my ridiculous uniform, and you have to go out in pairs. So me and the lady that I was with went out, and right outside the office was this man, and he had long grey hair and a placard, and he was shouting, Blackpool is the cesspit of the earth, this old guy. And I was fascinated by him. And so I went over to talk to him. And on the uniform, it said Lightpool, because in Blackpool there's illuminations, which are like lights all the way down the promenade. And our jobs were sponsored by the illuminations. So on the jacket, there was like a picture of a tower lit up and it said Lightpool on it. So I went over to this guy and I said, excuse me, can I talk to you? And he said, no, you can't talk to me. I haven't done anything wrong. You are not arresting me. And I said, no, I can't arrest you. I'm really interested in your story and what you've got to say and stuff. And he looked at me really curiously. So he started telling me how terrible Blackpool was, which I already obviously knew because I live there. And then in the middle of the conversation, he pointed at this emblem on my jacket and he went, you know that the light comes from inside you. It does not come from these lights on the promenade. Your light is inside you. And I went, oh my God, thank you. Thank you, because you are my sign from the universe. I said to my colleague, I'm quitting. I'm going back to the office and I'm quitting. Her face, she was like, what? You're mad. You can't do that. I was like, yes, I am. So I went straight back into the office and my manager was there and I said, I've just seen a guy outside. He went, oh no, I've heard him. I was like, no, he's my sign from the universe. I quit this job. It's terrible. I'm not doing it anymore. Now, in my head, I imagined me storming out and slamming the door, but he said that you've got to work 2 months in hand. I didn't know that because I'd been self-employed most of my life. I was like, what? I've still got to work here. But I negotiated, and I think they were glad to get rid of me, to be honest, because I was deemed a troublemaker for telling them the truth. So I only worked for an extra month. And then ever since then, that was a few years ago now, ever since then, I have been fully self-employed and loving it. So I decided one day to go on Twitter, which I never really do. Went on Twitter, I saw this tweet from some random guy that I didn't know, but he said that he was going to do something in Blackpool this evening. I thought, I'm just going to go down and go and see what this is about because I was quite curious. Anyway, the guy ended up being Math from Camarados, which is an organisation, a social change organisation, which is about friends and purpose and tackling isolation and loneliness and things like that. And Math is such a charismatic character that I just totally fell for his brain. I was like, oh my God, I love this. This is amazing. So after talking to Matt for a little bit at the end, we exchanged details and stuff, and he was opening, it's called a pop-up living room, a public living room, which is like a pop-up living room, and it was going to be in the library in the town. And I was like, I'll just come and do free art workshops. It's going to be brilliant. I'll come and do free art workshops. So we did that for quite a while, but because of the demographic of the town, unfortunately, we've got quite a lot of addicts and people with mental health problems. So eventually it felt a really unsafe place, and I couldn't keep going. And eventually it closed, which was really sad. But I still kept in touch with Math, which was brilliant. And then I signed up to a uni degree. I went with my partner. He was going to sign up for a night course. I was going to sign up for a 12-hour colour therapy course. They wasn't running, so we both signed up to degrees. Can you see the pattern here? There's a kind of a pattern going, I'll just not do this little thing. I'll just leap into this massive thing. And I think this is the thing about life. We don't know how long we've got here. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We've just got to leap at these opportunities that appear. Like, you've just got to go for them. Like, what is the worst that can happen? Just ask yourself that, and just, if you're not going to be homeless, if you're not going to be destitute, just go for it, because there's always a way. There's always a way. So we signed up to degrees. Crazy. And then because a degree wasn't enough, I decided to use my student loan money to open an arts community centre in the town, because there wasn't one and it needed one. So I badgered the council to give us a free property for a year. We still had to pay for all the bills and the rates and everything. And we opened a place called The Space, and it was lovely, and it lasted for a year. And there was all sorts of events on, not just run by me, but by other people that I know that came and ran events. And we had workshops, we had dancing, we had vegan food nights, we had speakers coming in, all sorts of stuff. It was brilliant in that way. But what I found was it was all left to me to do, and the community that wanted to build it didn't really appear, apart from a couple of people. So it was really hard. It was really, really difficult, and there was a lot of bureaucracy with the council and things like that. So after a year, we closed it. But within that year, we opened our own Camarado's public living room in there every Friday, so people could just come and drop in and have a chat and everything. So it was wonderful. And Math had seen all the stuff that was going on, and we ended up making a newspaper for Camarados. Me and my friend Kane, who was also involved in the space, we're just full of ideas, and we ended up making a newspaper for them. What I've just realised is I've forgotten a really important bit. So even though I've written down notes, I've forgotten an important bit. So let's just go back a little bit before my degree. So before my degree, after the living room is shut at the library, I get a phone call off Math, and he said, are you doing anything on these dates and stuff? I was like, no. And he said, would you like to go to New York? Now, I'd not had a passport all my life. I was frightened of having one because it felt like that I didn't deserve to do that kind of thing. It was a very weird thing coming from childhood. But 3 months before this phone call off Math, I'd got my first ever passport, and he said, would you like to go to New York? We need you to go over there with one of our camarados. There's an art project. I was like, oh my God, yes, 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 yes. So before that, I'd been on a plane to Norway, which is an hour and a half away on the flight. And me and Tom had gone for a long weekend, and it was just incredible. So then the next flight was this 7.5-hour flight to America. Like, what? But again, it's these opportunities that come up and you just got to take them. So it was incredible. It was freezing. It was the middle of December. It was snowing. It was -8 at some points. It was cold, really cold. But you know what? I enjoyed every single minute of it. So I went over with a lady called Emma, who's a camarado, and we worked with a guy called Garrett, who's an artist over there. Me and Garrett painted all the scenery to do public living rooms all around New York. So we did one on the subway, we did one on Brooklyn Bridge, we did them all over, these popping up these big living rooms. Just incredible. And what a life-changing, affirming trip that was. It was fantastic. And there was one point where I stood on the bridge, and it was at night time, so everything was lit up, and I just went for a little walk on my own because it was quite overwhelming. Went for a little walk on my own, and my mum had died a few years earlier, and I just looked up at the sky and I said, Mum, I am the person that does this. I can travel and I can do this. Because she'd always had this thing when we was kids that somebody else does that. We don't do that. Somebody else does it. And in that minute, it was just, what a changing moment for my life, you know? And then working with Garrett, who was in like art studios, I cried again. I cry a lot. I cried again, and I was like, this is what I want. I want a studio space. I want to be able to paint. I want to be able to do art things, you know? It was a brilliant, brilliant trip. So yeah, that happened. So then we made this newspaper for Camarados. It was brilliant. It was all going really, really well. And just loved it. But we shut the space, unfortunately, because it just couldn't carry on. And then was doing my degree. And then the pandemic hit. So we had to come out of uni and work from home, which was very annoying because I was doing an art degree, fine art degree, and my paintings were huge. So that was very annoying. So we've not had a graduation thing. We just got our letters through the post, and working for Camarado stopped. Everything went online. So now I'm focused on my Etsy store, which is built up beautifully. Just keep plugging away, keep going. And I'm also got a Patreon site. And I'm Dottie Delightful on everything, on all social media, and on Patreon, on Etsy and everything. And now I make zines, which is a paper magazine. I don't know why I'm doing that. Maybe that's the noise they make. And and I paint. So it's brilliant. So my whole thing of telling you all this life story is that you can come from absolutely rock bottom with loads of problems, with no support, thinking that you can't do it. But I'm telling you, you can do it if you have passion and drive and a little pinch of bravery to just go for it. Then you can do whatever it is that you want to do or you need to do. And you need to check in with yourself inside. What is that? What actually is that I want to do and that I need to do? And honour it and listen to it. Listen to that voice inside, because there's only you that knows you better than anyone else in the world, and ignoring that voice inside kills you slowly. Your soul will be dying bit by bit, and you feel out of balance. You could feel depressed. It affects people in so many ways when they don't listen to that inner voice. Be open to opportunities. Opportunities are everywhere. Have your eyes wide open. See what's going on, see the bigger picture, be able to step back and be an observer of what's going on rather than being in it and not being able to see the other side of it. So I will send you lots of love and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for listening to me. And if you want to find out anything more, my website is www.dottydelightful.com. And feel free to send me a message or get in touch. Enjoy.
That's it for this episode. The next one is still in creation. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, if you want to support this podcast, share, subscribe, and leave stars, blue thumbs, and a review on whichever platform you listen to. If you want to be accompanied in the change processes that life offers you, if you want to live a goddess life daily and participate in the awakening of feminine energy in the world, know the secrets of witches, and apply the rituals of fairies in your daily life, contact me on my website isaya.com. You can also subscribe to my newsletter to be informed of all the news in the real and virtual world of Isaya. You will, of course, find this podcast on all platforms: Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, etc., but also on YouTube and on my website, isaya.com, on the podcast page